No one could have foreseen what was about to happen, especially not in a federal courtroom, a place known for its strict security measures, where every eye at that moment was fixed on one person, Sean Diddy Combs. And then, in a moment no one expected, Oprah Winfrey stood up, took a deep breath, looked straight at the judge, and said, "I was also one of his victims." The entire courtroom froze, and just 1 second later, the trial exploded into chaos. Diddy screamed in fury, chairs and tables were knocked over, security officers rushed in. But it was already too late. In a panic, like a wild animal cornered, Diddy jumped from the defendant's seat, charged straight at Oprah, snatched the microphone from her hand, and screamed in her face. His scream wasn't words, it was a roar. Four federal agents immediately tackled him to the ground, handcuffing him amid the chaos. The press captured the entire scene, and the whole nation watched live as a music icon collapsed right in front of the woman who had once been seen as the embodiment of America's soft power, now revealing that she too had been secretly filmed and threatened in the shadows. At 8:46 a.m. that morning, Courtroom 4B of the Southern District of New York was packed. Present were not only lawyers, judges, and federal agents, but also international media and high-ranking FBI officials. All eyes turned to the third witness chair, added at the last minute, reserved for a name never before mentioned in any previous indictment: Oprah Winfrey. Diddy sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, his face hidden behind dark sunglasses, appearing calm, but his hands gripped the edge of the chair constantly, as if trying to suppress something. Anger or fear. 3 lawyers sat next to him, one whispered into his ear, but Diddy did not respond. His gaze remained fixed on the courtroom entrance, where Oprah had just walked in. She wore a charcoal gray suit, light makeup, and a face so calm it seemed cold. She greeted no one, smiled at no one, shook no hands. No camera captured any familiar friendliness. This was not the Oprah that television audiences had once adored. This was a living witness, stepping out of a story she herself could no longer control. When the judge allowed her to begin testimony, the entire courtroom held its breath. She requested to speak on her own, no lawyer, no representative. Something unprecedented in recent federal civil court history. Oprah stepped up, adjusted the microphone, looked straight at the panel, then turned and pointed directly at Diddy. Her voice was clear, unwavering. "I know he organized those parties. I was there, not because I wanted to be, but because I had no other choice." The courtroom fell into absolute silence. Even the court stenographer stopped typing for a moment. Diddy shot up as if struck in the chest, his face flushed red, his shoulders trembled. Oprah continued, this time looking directly at him, not at anyone else. "In 1993, I was invited to a private party at a mansion in Miami. My name wasn't on the guest list, but a record label employee told me I had to go, for publicity. I believed them, that's why I went," she said, in a voice so calm it was almost cold. "I remember clearly the dark room, dim red lights, the music that never stopped for 7 hours. I remember the faces of girls who had been drugged, forced to smile, and I remember the ceiling-mounted camera, aimed right at the sofa where I was pushed to sit. After just one sip of water, I was dizzy. No one in the room dared move, not a single cough." Oprah gave her testimony as if reading from an indictment carved into her memory. Her voice did not shake, her eyes did not blink. Each detail was precise enough to make everyone feel like they were in that room. She described the music, the smoke, the empty eyes of the men watching girls being pulled onto sofas behind those forced smiles. All of it under the cold lens of a slowly panning ceiling camera. And then, Diddy began shaking his head, at first lightly, then violently. He suddenly stood up, slammed his hand on the table, and scattered documents. "You're lying. Don't make things up in front of me," he shouted before anyone could react. He leapt across the barrier between the defendant and the witness stand. 2 security officers tried to stop him but couldn't in time. He charged at Oprah, grabbed the microphone from the table. A loud crack rang out. Oprah stepped half a step back but did not scream, did not flinch. She closed her eyes for one brief moment. 3 officers quickly restrained Diddy. They threw him to the ground, handcuffed him, and pressed his face to the courtroom floor. Oprah stood, calmly adjusted her jacket, stepped back, looked down at him and asked, "Is this how you react to victims? Or is this how you react when the truth can no longer be buried?" Oprah found the offer strange but reasonable, especially since she was in negotiations for the rights to a music-focused TV channel, so she accepted. She brought only her assistant, Kendra, who was required to wait outside behind 2 heavily guarded gates. Once inside, Oprah was struck by the sensory overload, dim red lights, bass vibrating through the walls, and an overpowering mix of tobacco, alcohol, and perfume. Familiar faces drifted through the haze, a singer she had interviewed, a famous model, a television producer, but all moved and behaved oddly, as if sleepwalking. Some stared blankly, others lifted glasses without a word, robotic, rehearsed smiles felt deeply wrong. As she prepared to leave, an unknown man grabbed her hand and said firmly, "Just 1 hour, Oprah. Everyone stays." A drink, bizarre in color, was offered to her. She refused, but it was placed in her hand anyway. She never drank it, just sipped water. Yet within 20 minutes, dizziness washed over her. That was when they guided her behind a black curtain into a small, dimly lit room with a long sofa. The lighting was so low she couldn't see who was on the other side. A ceiling-mounted camera tracked her movements. It wasn't a passive watcher, it moved, it zoomed, it recorded. Her voice caught, not in emotion, but in memory, like she was dredging up something her heart had tried to forget. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Another gripped my wrist. Someone whispered, but I couldn't make out the words. I couldn't stand. I couldn't leave. I just sat there. She told the room that her memory fragmented afterward, as if someone had cut the film reel. The next thing she recalled was staggering to the car, where Kendra told her she looked like she'd run a marathon. She remained silent and slept all the way to the hotel. The following morning, an envelope awaited her at the front desk. Inside, a USB drive and a note stating, "You did well. Thank you for cooperating." Oprah never opened it. She locked it away for years. 2 months ago, she received a call from an anonymous man who warned, "If you dare speak out, the clip will be released, not to harm anyone else, but to protect yourself." That fatal call unlocked everything. If she, Oprah Winfrey, could be threatened like this, how many others had been silenced? How many young women had no voice, no proof, no protection? "I'm not doing this to be seen as a victim," she declared, "but because if I stay silent, no one will believe those trembling young women out there. And if everyone waits for someone else to speak first, then no one ever will." The courtroom remained utterly still. No applause. No interruptions. Only a collective, breathless pause. The judge quietly wiped his glasses, the court reporter's typing slowed. Finally, the prosecutor asked, "Do you affirm that the person who organized that party in 1993 was Mr. Sean Combs, known as Diddy?" Oprah looked directly at him and said, in 4 sharp words, "I do." Without hesitation. "I am absolutely certain he was there." Her final words hit the court like lightning. The room froze, suspended between heartbeats. You could hear the faint click of the court reporter's pen. The judge's grip on the bench tightened, his eyes never left Oprah. In the front row, veteran journalists, many who had covered decades of high-profile trials, sat paralyzed, pens frozen, their focus fixed on the defendant's chair. Across the room, Diddy sat hunched, his knuckles white as he gripped the armrests. His head hung low, lips sealed tight, holding back a scream. For 3 minutes, there was only silence, a storm compressed into stillness. When the judge signaled to move on to prosecutorial questioning, Diddy finally stirred, but too slowly. He rose deliberately, as if preparing for a performance better suited to a stage. First he glanced at the cameras. Then he locked eyes with Oprah, his lips moving in a silent torrent of fury. And then it happened. With brutal speed, Diddy flipped his defense table, sending files scattering like leaves in a gale. The courtroom microphone knocked an agent's knee with a metallic thud. Chaos erupted. The trial disintegrated into raw disorder. He slammed his fist against the wooden barrier near the bench, veins bulging, eyes wild. He lunged toward the spectator area, plowing through chairs and people. A female reporter fell, her camera smashing against marble. Amid the chaos, Oprah stood unwavering at the witness stand, silent and steady, her grip loose on the rail as she watched the very proof of what she had just exposed charged toward her. Security struck back instantly. 2 agents grabbed his arms, but with animal strength he shook them off. He slammed his fist into the thick press glass, cracking it in a spiderweb pattern. Blood welled around his fingertips, but he didn't stop. His voice, a guttural roar of betrayal and rage, shattered the courtroom. "You betrayed me, you," expletive. "You liked it, don't act pure now." His confession echoed off marble walls, caught by courtroom mics and dozens of phones. It was no defense, just unfiltered, raw admission. 4 officers tackled him to the floor. 1 held his shoulders, 2 restrained his legs, 1 twisted his arms behind his back and snapped on handcuffs. He thrashed, smashing his head into the tile floor, leaving a smear of blood. The judge issued an emergency order: remove the defendant. Halt all proceedings. EMTs rushed in. Reporters were told to evaluate. Within minutes, the footage exploded across the internet. Clips of Diddy being dragged out, bloodied, raging, incoherent, spread like wildfire. Television networks scrambled. CNN interrupted its programming to label it one of the most disturbing breakdowns in modern court history. Fox News went further: Diddy, from mogul to meltdown. The Daily Mail screened its headline: Empire falls in 4 minutes 37 seconds, the longest collapse ever captured in court. On Twitter, #DiddyBreakdown surged into trending territory, 12 million mentions in under 6 hours. A slow-motion clip of Oprah standing resolute while Diddy thrashed beneath her became a symbol of reckoning long overdue. That evening, the district attorney confirmed that Diddy was en route to New York State maximum security detention, pending a 14-day psychiatric hold and investigation. His charges now included witness assault, destruction of federal property, and resisting arrest, opening the door to federal criminal indictments. Silent and composed, Oprah exited the courthouse through a side corridor. No flashbulbs. No entourage. Just a measured echo of her footsteps beneath cold fluorescent lights. Part 4. The silence shatters within 24 hours of the courtroom chaos. U.S. media shifted from whispers to full-throttle exposés. News outlets that once hedged with vague rumors now drop bombshell headlines. Forgotten lawsuits resurfaced. Quietly settled cases became public records. Even figures once closely aligned with Diddy reappeared, bruised but speaking out. Oprah's decisive words, "I am absolutely certain he orchestrated it," shattered the carefully maintained silence of the music and entertainment industries. An avalanche of voices followed, not from legal settings but from social media, Instagram confessions, TikTok revelations, and decades-old emails unearthed. Celebrities began deleting photos with Diddy. A supermodel from Paris Fashion Week 2005 posted, "I stayed silent out of fear for what I saw. No more." She even scanned and shared a diary entry forced under NDA, detailing a sinister backroom party. Then came Marcus T., a former backstage technician. In a 37-page FBI-redacted affidavit, he claimed he was ordered to install hidden cameras in chandeliers, speakers, and flower vases at Diddy's private events. A summer mansion in the Hamptons had cameras even in the upstairs bedroom. All footage was reportedly delivered to a mysterious figure known as Mr. Black, who would arrive before dawn carrying a silver briefcase of blank hard drives and cash. In a chilling confession, Marcus admitted that, by accident, he once opened a backup video showing an unconscious girl on a sofa while a man, whom he recognized as Diddy, poured liquid into her glass. Soon after, Marcus received an envelope reading, "You did well. Keep the secret like you keep your life." Marcus's revelations reshaped the case. What began as personal testimony became a sweeping federal probe into invasion of privacy, physical assault, blackmail, and covert filming at gated residences. Federal agents executed raids at 3 high-value properties: Miami, the Hamptons, Beverly Hills. At one Hamptons estate, listed under a shell company since 2017, investigators found dismantled security systems, burnt server drives, yet recoverable fragments of data. Among them was a folder titled Heaven Guests, replete with timestamped entries, guest codes, and notes that read, CAM 3 active, bed 1, 3:11 a.m., light full, no audio. All digital evidence is being securely re-encrypted for national-level prosecution. Meanwhile, subpoenas were issued to 3 of Diddy's high-profile associates, a Hollywood producer, a U.S. senator's campaign advisor, and a former member of Congress. Though none issued public comments, insiders disclosed that at least one is considering cooperating to secure immunity or reduce charges. This marks the beginning of the system's collapse, from inside circles and outside exposure alike. Media outlets then revived a dismissed 2011 case. An anonymous model alleged she was drugged at a charity event and woke to ceiling-mounted cameras. Now, armed with Marcus's testimony, prosecutors are reopening the investigation. Advocacy groups responded swiftly, urging Congress to form a special committee to investigate systemic abuse in entertainment. They also demanded a national fund to support victims exploited through hidden cameras. Survivors took justice into their own hands online, forming support networks, mapping alleged crime locations via interactive tools, and sharing their stories. Within 72 hours, over 40 new allegations emerged. Attorneys are now reviewing each to determine legal merit. One truth stands undisputed: silence is no longer an option. Not just because Oprah spoke, but because too many others now refuse to stay quiet. They cannot unsee what they've learned. They cannot forget what happened inside those shadowed mansions, where dim lighting served not ambience, but the erasure of boundaries between people and cameras.